Hello everyone. Welcome to today's story. Behind the quiet farm life hides a storm of emotions. Lytuna, torn between her past and her present. Alex, burning with love but haunted by suspicion. What truly lies behind Lytuna's late returns? Why does she so often leave her child with the grandmother? And who is the mysterious man that Alex discovers walking by her side? The ex-mother-in-law has already appeared, pleading to see her grandchild. Will her return bring reconciliation, or a deeper wound? And in the silence of the night, will Alex's trust survive, or will doubt consume their fragile love? Stay with us until the very end to uncover the choices, the regrets, and the shadows that linger in this story. Don't forget to subscribe and help us reach 1,000 followers. Your support is the light that keeps these untold stories alive. The house was quiet, except for the soft laughter of a baby in his grandmother's arms. She fed him with slow patience, her eyes full of warmth as she whispered praises, how well he ate, how calm he slept. The rhythm of the infant's breath was like the rustle of leaves outside, steady and reassuring. When the door opened, Lytuna and Alex returned, their steps betraying the lateness of their errand. The grandmother's voice carried both concern and tenderness. "Why so late? Where have you been?" Lytuna explained in a weary tone that she had gone down to the city for some matters. The grandmother smiled, half forgiving, half reminding, suggesting that next time they could simply leave the child with her. Alex nodded, grateful, while Lytuna remained quiet, her gaze resting on Henry's tiny face. In that simple exchange, a silent bargain was struck. The grandmother as the anchor of care, Lytuna as the mother chasing after responsibilities, and Alex standing somewhere in between, carrying both relief and an unspoken unease. The air smelled of warm milk and rain-soaked earth, a fragile calmness filling the room. Yet beneath the softness lingered an invisible thread, stretched taut between absence and return. The baby cooed, and in his innocence there was no suspicion, no weight of memory. But in the stillness of the grandmother's words, the first seed of distance had already been sown. Sometimes life begins in the quietest places, in the hands of those who wait, and in the lateness of those who return. Night fell gently over the farm, the horizon still glowing faintly with the last blush of dusk. Inside, Alex cradled Henry in his arms, rocking him to sleep with the awkward tenderness of someone who had only recently learned the weight of such small breaths. The child's eyelids fluttered, surrendering to slumber, and Alex's gaze lingered as though he were holding not just a child, but a fragile promise. When the silence deepened, Alex turned to Lytuna. His words were not spoken aloud, yet the truth glowed in his eyes. She had accepted him, finally. After her refusals, after her distance, she had chosen to let him step closer. The joy that welled inside him was quiet, but unshakable, like a lantern glowing in the wind. He vowed, silently and fiercely, that he would care for both her and Henry, not out of duty, but out of love that had waited patiently, like soil enduring winter for spring. Lytuna, standing nearby, felt the weight of her own decision. She remembered the sadness in Alex's eyes the last time she refused him, how the air between them had chilled. Now, watching him with Henry, her heart stirred. She whispered inwardly, "I will try. I will not let him carry sorrow again." Outside, the night was thick with crickets and the smell of wet grass. Inside, two lives crossed paths under the still breath of a child. It was a moment not of grand declarations, but of quiet promises, fragile as glass, yet luminous in the dark. The dawn at the farm carried with it the smell of soil and the restless clamor of animals. Tuna walked through the yard with a basket in her hands, scattering grain for the chickens, her movements steady but her thoughts elsewhere. The clucking rose around her, insistent, like the demands of life that never ceased. Soon after, she leaned over the pond, tossing feed to the fish. The water rippled in circles, fading quickly, as fleeting as the calm she sought. Yet her heart was unsettled. The silence of her own mother's absence lingered like a hollow room. Picking up the phone, she dialed Mr. Duong, her voice edged with quiet urgency. He confirmed what she feared. The wood workshop remained empty, unrented, a space that once held her hopes now turning into loss. Each day without tenants meant money slipping through her hands, like water through her fingers. She sat by the window afterward, her gaze falling on Henry's small blanket folded neatly by the bed. Her child slept peacefully, unaware of the heaviness pressing on her. To him, the world was only warmth and milk. To her, it was a fragile balance between nurturing and survival. Life had reduced itself to small rituals, feeding animals, waiting for phone calls, calculating what could not be calculated. Yet in those moments, Tuna's endurance shone quietly. She carried her burdens like the trees carried morning dew, silent, unremarked, but heavy with meaning. Sometimes the hardest wars are fought not in noise, but in the hushed persistence of everyday life. At the cafe, Alex sat across from Adam. The table between them filled with notes, empty cups, and the residue of negotiations. Adam spoke with the precision of a businessman. Quantities, timelines, promises of payment. Alex nodded, his mind calculating numbers. But somewhere behind his gaze lingered the image of Tuna's face and the echo of Henry's soft breathing. Later, they drove together to the grapefruit orchard. The road was narrow, lined with dust and shadows, their steps crunching against dry soil. Adam marveled at the trees, heavy with pale green fruit. Alex picked one, sliced it open, revealing a flesh not yet fully sweet. Adam tasted, frowned slightly, and Alex explained gently, "Give it 10 more days. The sugar will rise, the color will deepen, the orchard will be ready then." Adam agreed, their hands clasping in a deal that carried weight and expectation. Yet as Alex guided him through the rows, his own heart felt strangely elsewhere. Business was thriving, the orchard lush, but an emptiness had begun to settle inside him. Success, he realized, could not quiet the unease that rose when he thought of Tuna. When the meeting ended and Adam departed, Alex remained behind, watching the orchard in silence. The fruit swayed lightly under the wind, promising abundance, but the stillness of his chest told another truth. Love and work were pulling him in opposite directions, and though he smiled to hide it, the distance between him and Tuna had quietly begun to grow. The morning was heavy with a strange stillness when she arrived. Tuna opened the door to find the familiar face of her former mother-in-law, a shadow pulled from the deepest corner of memory. The older woman's eyes glistened with something between sorrow and insistence as she pleaded, "Let me see my grandchild." Tuna's chest tightened. The air seemed to thicken, carrying echoes of years ago when she had been cast out, pregnant and alone, by this very woman and her son, Huang An. That memory returned like a wound pressed open. Her voice trembled, yet was firm. There is no grandchild here for you. But the woman's persistence cut through. She spoke of regret, of mistakes paid for, of loneliness that now clung to her bones. Finally, worn by the begging, Tuna relented only a fraction. She allowed her to stand at the doorway, to look at Henry sleeping peacefully inside, but forbade her to touch him. The ex-mother-in-law's eyes filled with longing as she whispered about blood ties, about resemblance to Huang An. Her hands reached forward, trembling, yet Tuna's voice rose sharply, closing the distance. "No, that's enough. Don't disturb our lives." The woman stepped back, but as she walked away, her thoughts grew darker. The child, she realized, looked unmistakably like her son. Bitterness hardened into resolve. She would find a way to bring the child back into her arms. For Tuna, the silence afterward was heavier than the confrontation itself. The past had knocked on her door, and though she had closed it, its shadow lingered inside. That evening, Alex returned to the farm. The warmth of Tuna's smile and Henry's quiet breathing soothed him for a moment. She confided in him, telling how her ex-mother-in-law had come, begging to see the child. Alex's hand closed gently over hers. His words were soft, steady. "Don't worry. I'm here. I'll protect you." His presence was a shield, a promise carved in silence, yet beneath that promise, something else stirred. In the following days, Alex began to notice patterns. Too often, Henry was left with his grandmother while Tuna left for work. At first, he brushed aside the unease. But one afternoon, while returning from the orchard earlier than expected, he saw her at the edge of the town, walking not alone, but beside another man. Their steps fell in rhythm, their conversation hidden in the hush of distance. He did not confront her. Instead, he watched from afar, his heart a battlefield of denial and suspicion. The image branded itself into him. Her laughter, faint but real, shared with someone else. That night, as he lay awake, the silence between them seemed to deepen into something unspoken and sharp. Love burned brightly in him still. Fierce and unwavering, but doubt crept like ivy through the cracks. Was her affection a shelter for him, or a veil hiding another truth? Alex's mind circled endlessly, torn between trust and fear. Sometimes betrayal is not confirmed by words, but by the spaces where silence grows too wide to cross. And in that silence, Alex felt both the fire of love and the shadow of doubt. The night stretched long, its quiet pierced only by the ringing of Alex's phone. His mother's voice on the other end asked him to come home, and so he prepared to leave. At the door, he paused, eyes resting on Tuna. "If anything happens, call me," he said softly, a plea disguised as instruction. She nodded, though her gaze lingered on the floor, heavy with unspoken thoughts. When his car disappeared into the dark, silence pressed against the farm like fog. Tuna walked back inside, the baby's soft breathing anchoring her to the present. Yet her mind wandered. If Alex's mother learns of us, will she accept me? Or will history repeat itself like the cruelty of my past? The weight of judgment she had once endured threatened to return, and with it came fear of losing the fragile peace she had built. On the road, Alex's hands tightened on the wheel. His love for Tuna was real, undeniable, but the memory of her walking beside another man gnawed at him like a shadow at the edges of light. He wanted to trust, to believe her heart was his. Yet suspicion lived now within him, a seed he could not unplant. Between duty to his family, devotion to Lytuna, and the sting of doubt, he drove into the night, torn in half. Love is not always shattered by betrayal itself, but by the slow erosion of trust. In that truth lay the quiet tragedy of their night. Two hearts reaching, yet divided by silence.
Lytuna cùng Alex đưa bé Harry đến thăm bà ngoại. Bà chăm sóc bé chu đáo, khen ngoan và khuyên Lytuna có thể thường xuyên gửi bé để yên tâm làm việc. Trở về nông trại, Alex hạnh phúc vì Lytuna đã đồng ý làm bạn gái. Anh thầm hứa sẽ che chở cho hai mẹ con, nhưng sóng gió kéo đến khi mẹ chồng cụ xuất hiện. Nài nỉ gặp cháu, Lytuna kiên quyết từ chối. Chỉ cho nhìn từ xa, quá khứ bị ruồng bỏ trỗi dậy. Alex nghe chuyện, an ủi Lytuna. Nhưng sau đó, âm thầm điều tra phát hiện cô thường xuyên gửi con cho bà để đi cùng một người đàn ông khác. Giữa tình yêu và hoài nghi, Alex rơi vào khoảng lặng. Đau đớn, còn Lytuna lo sợ tương lai đầy bất trắc.